I've never done a Pride episode on the show for a whole lot of reasons. Meredith and I have talked about it, and we both agree that it would feel like performative allyship for me to do it, and like, frankly, I'm not the guy who should be offering any commentary or insights on the LGBTQ culture or world. And bringing in a guest for that feels like tokenship, and now we're right back to the performative allyship issue, and so we just never really did it. But I've been doing research for this really big episode that I'm working on about what people were actually drinking during Prohibition. Not the drinks from Prohibition that modern cocktail bloggers like to write about, but the things that people actually were drinking during Prohibition. And this morning, I was thumbing through a PDF of the very sadly out of print Wet Drinks for Dry People, a cocktail guide that I have fallen absolutely in love with. I love this book. And I spotted a drink called the Pansy, which sounds very derogatory. I promise you it's not. You just have to stay with me until after the drink to find out why. And that called back to my mind what I know about the Pansy Craze, which is entirely about the roaring 20s, Prohibition, and pre-code cinema. Three things that are decidedly within my wheelhouse. So by total coincidence, it seems that this year I'm doing a Pride-ish episode. But let's start with the drink, because I've never had one of these before, and I'm very excited to see what it's like. The Pansy Cocktail. So, the Pansy, it's got some flavor text in there to borrow from Magic the Gathering. It's dedicated to some of the boys I have met and about whom I have had some doubts. All right, it's a really simple cocktail. 2 ounces of gin. I happen to grab Hendrick's. Looking at the ingredients that go into this drink, which are very simple, I thought that Hendrick's might bring a little bit more flavor to it and also have like less of those really extreme pine gin notes that you're accustomed to seeing in gin. I just thought it would be a better gin for this. I think we'll find out in a minute if it was. 2 ounces of gin, and again, I think Hendrick's is not a bad choice here. We're gonna do 1 dash of Angostura Bitters, not much at all. There you go, 1 dash of Angostura Bitters. In the book, it does just say bitters on that page. A lot of books like this at the very beginning will have like a breakdown of what terminology means, and it's very explicit, Angostura Bitters. It also says, for some reason, that almond extract is a usable stand-in for Angostura Bitters, which we were discussing this in the Discord that my members of my Patreon have access to. It's very possible, actually, that almond extract at this time was made very differently than the way it is now, because I don't think that almond extract would taste anything like Angostura Bitters. And a teaspoon of Grenadine. Normally, I would say to use, a bar spoon or a couple of bar spoons or whatever, but in truth be told, a teaspoon and a bar spoon are not really the same thing. I mean, as you can see, this is a teaspoon, this is a bar spoon. Just made this Grenadine, so it's really hot. There we go, a teaspoon of Grenadine. That's the whole drink. There's no sour component here at all, which makes me wonder if the Grenadine at that time would have had a lot more acidity in it or something like that. I don't know. But we're just gonna shake it and serve it up. Truth be told, I wonder if this drink should be stirred. It probably should. I should stir this drink. Yeah, definitely this drink should be stirred. No fruit juice of any kind in here. I'm gonna strain that into a chilled glass. The book does not make mention of a garnish, but I'm gonna use a little bit of poetic license here. I think a twist of lemon would be pleasant. And there it is, a pansy. Very nice color, kind of a light reddish pink. That is surprisingly good. I really like that, actually. That's I swear to God, I might actually drink these because I like this better than a martini. It's a lot more mild and sweeter than a martini. I'm not really big on martinis. It could be just that, like, I haven't had Hendrick's in a really long time and it's like doing it for me today. Smooth mouthfeel, rounded, soft, sweet notes. If you make your own Grenadine, it should have orange blossom water in it, which is lending a real floral note to this. You won't find that in commercially available Grenadine. Grenadine is so easy to make, you really should make your own. We'll put a recipe for my Grenadine in the video description and also in the HGD app if you are a member of the Patreon. And I think that it's doing a lot of lifting here. I mean, this drink has a lot of evolution, balanced, just the right amount of sweetness, just enough earthiness from Angostura. Very subtle, very subtle. You could do another dash, I think. But the floral nature of the grenadine that's in there is, first off, it's adding a sweetness, which is necessary, but it's also bringing in these floral notes. And that is like really kind of the dominant flavor here. I don't think you're gonna get a lot of the pomegranate notes from the grenadine. There's even a debate, honestly, about how pomegranate grenadine should be. I know Darcy O'Neill doesn't really, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think he, for example, does not hold with the notion that grenadine should just be made with pomegranate juice and sugar. He has a pharmacist's take on it that would be appropriate to the time, but is different than what a lot of modern mixologists are doing. I don't want to wade into any of that. Regardless, it adds color, it adds sweetness, and it adds a floral note here that is really pleasant. This is a delightful little drink. I really enjoy this. You know, whenever I have a drink for the first time on the show, I think maybe I'll do an improved version in the episode, and maybe I will. You know, because you have try it and then you think, oh, I would do this, this, and this with it. But like, I don't know if I can make a version of this that's any better, honestly. This is pretty great without it becoming a totally different drink. So what was the Pansy Craze? So first off, right off the top here, initially pansy was pretty clearly a derogatory term for an effeminate gay man. But the term was utterly reclaimed by the community, in large part, as far as I can tell, by Jean Malin, a very famous drag performer of the era, who dubbed himself the Queen of the Pansies.
Frankie and Johnny was sweethearts, but everything above 'cause he was a man.
The Pansy Craze can largely be centered around the late 20s and early 30s, which is the height of Prohibition. And we can't talk about the Pansy Craze without talking about Prohibition. Because the thing about Prohibition is speakeasies, which are specifically not saloons. Saloons operated in the daylight and were, so far as I know, exclusively male establishments, save for the working girls who plied their trade there. Saloons endeavored to operate within the confines of the law and the social mores of the community, although they didn't, which is how you end up with Prohibition. But they tried, right? Like, they didn't want to get put out of business. Speakeasies, however, start from a position of total lawlessness. Where the saloons would have been segregated by race and exclusive to men, speakeasies didn't care as long as you were paying. So the speakeasy, in a case of hilariously unintended consequences, were places where the strong lines that separated race and class and gender in America became blurred or disappeared altogether. I have plans for another episode about how speakeasies changed the world that I want to explore more fully in another episode, so I don't want to get into that too much here. But what matters is that it is against the backdrop of the speakeasies and Prohibition that the Pansy Craze takes off. Cities across America, where there were nightclubs and speakeasies, they featured pansy shows. Basically, it's like the same kind of bawdy comedic drag performances you might associate with RuPaul's Drag Race. The shows were really big draws, very popular, and permitted both in underground speakeasies and publicly visible nightclubs. And I can already hear the comments. I can already hear the comments right now. Some people are saying, oh, well, that happened in Weimar, Berlin first. Well, I got news for you. I've been researching Weimar, Berlin. I'm doing a whole series of episodes, or I plan to, around the drinking culture and times and place of Berlin at the same time. And from what I can tell, that's backwards, actually. America was a symbol of everything modern, fast, and futuristic to the Berliner. And if anything, I think that the drag cabaret world of Berlin was probably being imported from America. And the reason, we're gonna come to it, you're gonna come to the reason why you don't really associate that with an American past, but a Berlin past, coming up next. I think it's worth pointing out that in, I think, 1927, Metropolis comes out. It depicts a sci-fi futuristic New York, not a sci-fi futuristic Berlin specifically. It was inspired by a visit to New York. Could be talking out of turn here, but from what I have read so far, my research on this so far suggests that there certainly was as much in those drag shows that Berlin of the Weimar was so famous for, as much America as anything else. Back to America, these pansy shows were largely catering to straight audiences, but it's not like LGBTQ people were somehow barred from entering or being in the audience. I did have an instinct initially to compare this to the Cotton Club in Harlem, where black musicians were performing for white audiences, but the Cotton Club was strictly segregated. Black people were not permitted into the audience, only on the stage, with very few rare exceptions, like less than a handful that were made for prominent black celebrities. we've set sort of a foundation for the Pansy Craze here. This drink is nearly empty, and I kind of think I should make a second drink in this episode. And then I got more to say about this because we're only about halfway through my Pansy Craze. We haven't even gotten into the whole pre-code cinema thing yet. That is yet to come. I wasn't really sure where to go with a follow-up to this drink, but as I was preparing my bottles for the show, I caught sight of this. This is a small bottle of what's left of some fig rum that I made, actually. It's an El Dorado rum that has been infused with figs. I used a Spinzall to make this several episodes ago. Spinzall is a really cool device. It is a bartender centrifuge. It allows you to clarify infusions or fruit juices really well, like totally clear. And I really love the way the fig rum came out. Something about fig, something about this feels like it plays in the same vein as the Pansy. So I've got my fig rum. I know that's gonna be tough to replicate for a lot of people. Let's start with 2 ounces of fig rum. You can do it though, you can do it. I mean, it's definitely gonna be clearer with a Spinzall, but you can definitely do it by, I think honestly, just slicing and infusing figs into rum for a long time. It's a lot faster with a blender and a Spinzall. If you wanna do a blender and a lot of filtration, you won't get it crystal clear, but you get the same taste. Let's do a bar spoon of Maraschino Liqueur. Let's do a teaspoon of Maurin Quina, Le Poire Maurin Quina. This is a, I used to use this on the show a lot. I think half because I love the label, but I don't know. I was looking for a little something extra for this. This is a cherry bitter liqueur from France. Quina means it has quinine in it, basically, or it traditionally did. It's not very sweet, but it's not sweet either. It has a lot of earthy and herbal notes in it. And also, I don't know, the devilish little imp on it and the whole fact that it's France and we're talking about the Pansy Craze made me think of Le Monacal, which I'm so sorry. Dear people of France, I am sorry for my parody accent. Le Monacal! My Pepe Le Pew, yeah, which was a lesbian-owned nightclub and cabaret, famous in Paris at the same time during the 20s and 30s. So let's do a teaspoon of it. What the heck? Since we're playing with teaspoons already, we're in that world. I don't normally like to work with spoons as measures, but fine. You know what I think too? Chocolate bitters. I had thought we'll have to throw some bitters in there as well, but why not Angostura cocoa bitters? I forgot to add them. 2 dashes of Ango cocoa. Now we're talking. Caught it out of the corner of my eye there. Okay. Take your chilled glass, strain it in. I did initially have a thought that I might do this with a absinthe rinse, but I've got enough going on here now that I've decided against it. Normally you want the wash line higher, but there was something kind of cool about that. I don't know what it is, that freeboard. To borrow a sailing term, that very high freeboard on this drink. I don't know, there's something about that. It feels a little decadent. I can't quite explain it. I'm going to use one of my own cocktail cherries that are going to be featured in an upcoming episode once cherries come back into season. I'm very happy with the way these are coming out, although the bottle that they're currently in makes them really hard to get at. A Maraschino cherry will do you fine, though. Very happy with the way these taste. They taste like those humidor vibes that I really like. And there we have it, a Pansy number 2. I don't know what else to call it. I love that. I love that. It tastes so figgy. There are notes of cherry. There's a loud, earthy boom of fig in there, and now some raisin as well. The whole thing is very approachable. Very approachable. Very, I'm gonna say dry. It certainly is sweetened, but it doesn't come across as an overly sweet cocktail. And when you combine that with the earthy kind of notes that it has, it actually comes across pretty dry. It's not like bracing the way a gin martini is, but maybe like a Manhattan. Maybe it's sort of a cousin to a Manhattan in a weird way. Flavor-wise, not build-wise. I get noses of the chocolate bitters, like I get that as an aroma right on the top sip there. It's a very enjoyable drink with a cherry aftertaste. Chocolate up front, cherry in the back, and fig in the middle. That's the best way to put it. Could not be happier with this little guy. You may or may not have noticed that all of the glassware on How to Drink is provided by Whiskey. They are the official glassware provider of How to Drink, and boy, do they provide glassware. I love their glasses. Use the link down here or up here in the corner. Use code HowToDrink20 at checkout. You're gonna get 20% off of your entire order from Whiskey. Whiskey makes beautiful glassware that you can use in your home bar, and if you have a home bar, you need glasses. You gotta have them. Let's get back to the Pansy Craze in the Roaring 20s, Prohibition, pre-code cinema, a period in American cinema that I'm obsessed with personally that we call the pre-code years. I think that once you have been introduced to pre-code film, you will, I don't know, it's like having the veil pulled off of your eyes. Like, oh, what I imagine the past to have been like is actually not what the past is like. Because after 1934, the past is like this invention, this lie. Pre-code, generally speaking, the summer of 1934 and earlier, Hollywood could kind of get away with anything. And they did. In those films of the pre-code years, you're gonna find a lot of gay and lesbian innuendo and characters.
Good morning, madam.
Oh, I thought you were Pansy.
Well, I'm the wildest pansy you ever picked.
Yes, often played, frankly, for laughs in stereotypical fashion.
May I cut in?
Quite certainly.
Boys will be boys.
Woo!
But there they are in movies like Call Her Savage.
Where are we going?
Well, you said you wanted to go slumming, so I picked a place to eat in the village. Only wild poets and anarchists eat there. It's pretty tough.
And go dashing up and down the hall. Working a dream beneath the snug.
In Wonder Bar, in The Public Enemy, actually, which Meredith and I just covered on our podcast, Midnight Local, which is a podcast where we talk about movies and then wherever the conversation goes from there. There is a scene in which James Cagney is being fitted for a suit, and the tailor, who is a pansy, a stereotypical Hollywood pansy caricature, makes a pass at him.
Don't forget, plenty of room in there. Oh, sir, here's where you need the room. Such a muscle.
Make it snappy. You're going to find out what it's for.
Yeah, come on, let's get out of here.
Cagney just kind of informs him the way that a street tough would. I'm not interested, buddy. Move along. And so many others. There's so much.
I say, Thomas, look. That heavenly blue against that mauve curtain. Doesn't it excite you?
Morning, Ebba.
Oh, how can you say such a thing? I've always looked upon myself as a very passionate woman.
Well, I don't know anything about that, dear Duchess, but you don't get it into your dancing.
Maybe less than ideal gay representation in these movies, but it's there. And on one hand, maybe we should look at these performances as being derogatory and hurtful stereotypes. But on the other hand, these performances are coming out of underground speakeasies with the tradition of vaudeville, where the people on the stage and the people in the audience were all there, laughing together as a singular peer group of fun-loving, libertine criminals looking to enjoy a good drink and a bawdy song. I'm not so sure that these performances or their inclusion in pre-code films comes from a place of hate. In fact, I'm pretty sure it doesn't, actually. But the complete disappearance of them does.
But it does mean quite definitely that the vulgar, the cheap, and the tawdry is out.
In 1934, the code goes into full enforcement and LGBTQ characters cease to exist entirely in cinema, except in secret and coded ways, dubbed the Celluloid Closet, which is a good documentary you should watch. You know, movie theaters didn't only show new releases back then. There was no way to watch a movie at home, and if a movie was popular, your local theater would probably run it again. Except that after 1934, certain scenes and characters would have been cut from the print, never to be seen again until modern restoration efforts. This is what pre-code cinema and looking at it is all about. We talk about this on Midnight Local all the time. The tailor in The Public Enemy, who's taking James Cagney's measurements doesn't exist in the film after 1934 until it was restored. Movies were the media of the day, really? I mean, if you think about it, sure, you had radio, but the movies is where a lot of people got their news because there were newsreels. That's where you got your entertainment from. There was no TV at home. There was no, I mean, you had, for popular entertainment, you had dime novels, comic books, the radio, and the movie theater, right? So that's it. And the strict enforcement of the code, it created a kind of an illusion. It's a fantasy of some other place that didn't really exist, where the cowboys always wore white hats and they never dated each other, and cops were never crooked, and the bad guys, or just women who happened to have sex, always got punished by the third act. And I'm sure that the adults who were aware and saw that transformation that just came down like a hammer in 1934, they knew it was an illusion and a lie, like it happened on the turn of a dime. But they were busy. The Depression was going on, and they had World War II to get ready for, but their kids didn't know it was a lie. Their kids only grew up in a post-code world where John Wayne was a hero, the bad guys got punished, and frankly, gay people didn't exist. You can insert Plato's The Cave here if you want, I don't know. I actually just did an episode a couple weeks ago about the power and danger of nostalgia. And by the way, nobody watched it, so go check it out. And the way that advertisers can use it against you. In it, I kind of point out that efforts to return or suggestions that we should return to some bygone era always seem to center on an era, a time, or a place that never actually existed at all. It's always a dream. It's always a fantasy that was cooked up by some dream factory, or I guess in this case, maybe the censorship board. Because there never was a time or place in America that LGBTQ plus people didn't exist. Only one in which they couldn't be seen. That's it for HTD. Good night and good luck. See you guys next week.